Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Marty Melville, and I'd like to welcome our guest for today, Kevin du Toit. He's a writer, real estate icon, and now celebrity who's just starred in Discovery Channel's newest reality series, Tethered. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Marty.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm excited. This is going to be awesome.
So, you have an accent. It's very audible. And of course, the first question most people ask you is, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from South Africa, but my dad worked for the airlines, so we lived pretty much many different places. The majority of my life was in the Cabo Verde Islands, which are just off the west coast of Africa. My first language was Portuguese, kind of like a slang Portuguese called Creole. And then we moved back to South Africa when I was 5, and I had to relearn English and kind of spoke with a slang English and Portuguese accent.
Well, it's very endearing. I enjoy talking to you. So,
I know you do.
we have a good time. But now now that you're in the States, you've become a top iconic real estate agent here on the coast, the West Coast, and you're doing very well at that. But originally, I know you came from Hollywood. Tell us a little bit about that.
I grew up kind of gloriously defiant. I didn't take authority very lightly. I was quite a rebel, and didn't do well in school, and was always kind of getting myself into trouble, kind of sabotaging myself. So I always had this kind of wild streak in me, and I think that's what really brought me to America. So when I was 17, I got myself into just some trouble in South Africa, and my dad was just kind of tired of me in the small country, and so he gave me $20 and 2 suitcases of clothing and said, you know what, he got me a one-way ticket to America, and he said, South Africa is too small for you. You need to go where the grass is greener. And he shipped me off to America. And that was it.
Wow. So your dad had some vision about what he thought you should possibly do with your life, it sounds like.
Yeah, he was a simple man, and I was a complicated man. And he just knew that I was unhappy in South Africa. He knew that it was too small for somebody like myself. And he wanted me to spread my wings. He was the kind of guy that when I would wake up every day, he would say, Kevin, you're a warrior today. Go out, you've got a battle to win. You want to win today's battle because at the end of the week you want to win the war. So every day I kind of went out with this mentality that every day was a battle. Every day was going to be a warfare. And that I was a warrior, a Spartan, and I was going to take the world on.
I like that word warrior. Behind a warrior is passion, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to flip that on you, what is your passion?
I would be so careful because everything sounds so greedy. But I love the idea of freedom. I love that idea. I think that's just remarkable. Do we have freedom anymore? Not really, Marty, but I do believe that freedom is a great word. It's prosperity, it's honor, it's dignity, it's courage, it's happiness, it's love. I mean, there's so many beautiful things about freedom. And I think that's what my battle was in South Africa was. I wasn't sensing freedom because there wasn't any freedom there. There was too much conflict.
It sounds like you're describing the American dream almost when you say freedom.
And that's exactly, yeah. And that is the American dream. Okay? And that's what America does to you. I grew up, my mother, I would see my mother every 2 weeks. So on the weekend she'd take us to a movie. And all the movies were American movies. So I saw all the kind of the Valley movies, all the 80s and Weird Science and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, all those kind of movies. And I always had these.
Love that. Yeah,
such great movies. And they're timeless.
Yeah.
You can watch them over and over again. So I kind of grew up with this, this kind of glamorous lifestyle of California.
Oh, so that kind of explains how you ended up in Hollywood. Do you still work in the film industry?
Now I do because I'm working with you, Marty.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of writing with you. But for about 16 years, I was in the thick of it. And my last few years, I worked for DreamWorks for Steven Spielberg. In post-production, I was coordinating a lot of elements when it came to editing movies and so forth, and the working with the crew and the contracts. And I read a lot of scripts, worked on a lot of budgets. So I really got to kind of digest some of the most prolific movies that you've seen today. At the time, I didn't know it, but at that time, I was kind of bored. I was given a script, I had to read it and give kind of a breakdown of the script and a budget and a schedule. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, and I'd read this 110-page script and break it down by word, by scene, by character, by location, by visual effects. I did that for about 6.5 years, and I was done. I was finished.
You were
I was
burned
done. I
out.
was burnt out. But I didn't realize from reading Gladiator, from reading The Matrix, because I read that as well before it even became a
Right.
movie. The Island, when I read these really incredible movies, Saving Private Ryan, Catch Me If You Can.
Which you were also a part of. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you have credits for those films, so you're a credited editor for
Mm-hmm.
many of these iconic, like Avatar. Avatar is one of them. Castaway, one of my favorites, The Haunting. Lots of great films. So you got in the thick of it. You were very involved with these iconic producers and working with these companies, and then you hit the wall.
Yeah, I mean, I met them all, Marty. They were awesome people. People like Sam Mendes,
Mm-hmm.
Ridley Scott. Um, who else was there? Gore Verbinski. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't an editor for them. I was more part of the production, so I was a coordinator of elements
Mm-hmm.
within a movie. But I was responsible at the end of the day for the print itself. So whenever a movie was finished and there was a print, so you had this $100 million movie in a can on film. That's where I kind of stepped in to really take responsibility. And so I wasn't really an editor, but I became an editor because I wanted to get out of the post-production world and go more into the creative world.
Mm-hmm.
But on movies like Avatar and The Kingdom and Speed Racer and the other Indiana Jones, The Crystal Skull, I was the COO of a visual effects previous company in Hollywood that did a lot of this new way of doing storyboards that was more of a digital storyboard than a drawing,
Right.
It was a digital visual storyboard, and that's the future, because a lot of these studios are spending $100 to $200 million on a movie, and they wanted to see a digital.
So it sounds like when you were doing that, not to cut you off, but it sounds like when you were doing that almost molded you into becoming a writer just out of necessity. Is that where the writing came into? Because that's my experience with you. We write together, and I enjoy it. You're brilliant. I can attest to that.
You hit the nail on the head. After years and years and years of just digesting screenplays, I forget who it was. Was it my wife? I forget who it was. She said, "Kevin, it might be my mother or my wife. Somebody that has an impact in my life. I'm a mommy's boy, so." When either my wife or my mother speak, I listen and I go do.
Your wife is amazing.
Yeah.
I love her. Yeah.
And so somebody said, go do screenplay writing, so
right.
Because you have all this knowledge, all this background, So I went and did an advanced screenplay writing course over 3 months, and everything I was writing in the class, the professors, these are TV producers and writers. They were different coaches that came in to mentor us and talk to us and read our work and critique it and so forth. They kept loving my work, and I didn't understand. I was like, why do they like my work? Because it's different. I'm South African. No, they actually, everybody else's work are torn apart, but my work are complimented. Constructive criticism.
Right.
So I kind of walked away like, wow, I felt more inspired to do more and write more. With other guys, their work, they wanted to keep reinventing the wheel and get rid of that one. And so a new project. Where my project over 3 months, when I finished it, everyone in the class said, go make that movie. It was a movie about a soccer player.
I remember when we first started writing together, one of the things that you said when you read my screenplay, I'll never forget this. The first one I wrote, you said, have you been told this is a really good screenplay? And I said, yes. And then you promptly said, you remember this? Tell him what you said. They're blowing smoke. That's what he said. And I won't finish that sentence, but basically, he just said they're blowing smoke up your dress, and because it really sucks. This really stinks, this screenplay. So then you sat down and said, we can either do this, the way that it comes out of the textbooks, or we can do it the way, Spielberg expects it to be done. Let's do it.
The Hollywood way.
Right.
Yeah.
So explain to people what that means and tell them how we roll as a writing team.
That's the awesome thing, Marty. It's so easy to get things accomplished if you do it. There's a formula to everything in life. There's a formula, because I'm in real estate, but there's a formula to selling a home. There's a formula to buying a home. There's a formula to doing there's a formula to making a cake, cooking a meal. So all you really have to do now is take that formula and write a script. So because I'd read so many scripts, I'd kind of digested all these formulas into one. It was very easy for me to put that on paper.
Right.
So I kind of forget your question. You're going
well,
to...
just how we roll. Like when we're a writing team, a lot of people, there's comments on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing with Hollywood. You're kind of swimming with sharks. So there's a lot of people in Hollywood that are just BSs. They're just a bunch of rubbish nonsense. And it's only the echelon, the kind of a few, like a 2% that sit at the top that are the royalty of Hollywood. They really get things accomplished because they do it the right way and they do it the Hollywood way. If you try and reinvent the wheel, you're going to lose. There's only one way the wheel is round.
So what is the Hollywood way?
The Hollywood way is a formula. It's a system. It's a funnel. You take all these ideas and you put it into a screenplay format the way they like it. The two formats you can use is Final Draft and Movie Magic.
Right.
I use Final Draft.
We kind of follow too when we write. We use, and I'm not promoting anybody in particular, but we use the Save the Cat formula a lot too. Some of the way that's outlined, and it seems to help keep us on task because my problem is as a writer, I tend to write details, which is typical of anybody that writes a novel. We took a 400-page screenplay, and Kevin says we've got to get this into 120 pages, between 90 and 120. I thought that was impossible. But by darn, he pulled it off. I was very impressed. And it was just edit, cut.
Polish.
Yeah.
Rewrite, polish.
A lot of time rewriting.
I think what happens, Marty, because you're out of the system in a sense that you're a neighbor on the outskirts of Hollywood, living in Orange County. Mm-hmm. You'll meet people from Hollywood, and if they kept telling you how amazing they were, and then I looked at their work and I thought, this is atrocious, this is just terrible. It's because you had no idea. You're kind of on the outskirts, and because they come from that world, they know that you're not used to the kind of the name dropping in the words, and so you're kind of like, wow. And that's when I said to you, drop these guys, make it rid of them, because you're wasting your time with them, because all they're doing is kissing your butt, but you're not going to go anywhere with them. Either they deliver and produce, or you move on. And if they can't do that, then you're wasting time.
And that's actually where I came from. I had a screenplay that sat for a year with, actually twice. This happened twice, but it sat for a year with a producer that kept promising the world, and nothing ever happened. And you really did. You came in and kind of opened my eyes to the process, which is you got to do it Hollywood's way and quit trying to reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. Hard thing to do. So for future screenwriters and others that are trying to break into Hollywood with their great idea, which they're out there. Mm-hmm. It's not just the same writers coming up with the best. There is a million great writers out there.
Guys out there.
Yeah, and I want to support that. I'm a huge advocate of writers and new ones being discovered. So what advice can you give to future screenwriters or to those screenwriters that are trying to break into Hollywood? Any advice for them?
I don't want to sound so cliche, but I heard this over and over again, and I always ignored it. Until eventually I realized that was the secret sauce, is that story is king. And in Hollywood, I always saw how they disrespected writers, and they didn't disrespect writers, they loved writers. But everybody thought they were a writer, and they weren't. Yeah. You really have to have a passion for it. And the people that had a passion for writing, they lived, they eat, and they slept writing. I mean, they weren't trying to be an actor and a director and a producer and a line producer and an editor. I mean, they just focused on writing, because at the end of the day, that's how you start. You don't end a movie with the movie on the screen. You end a movie starting with the pages.
Right.
Pre-production was several months to several years to a few months of shooting to a few months of editing, and then you're done. Then it goes into the big screen. But be relentless. Never, ever give up. Even if you have to get a day job to pay rent, when you go home at night, just write. Right. And the more you write, the more you'll polish your skills and the more confident you'll get. And read other people's work. I mean, a perfect example is George Lucas, is Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. There's just something about that script that it's so easy to read, and you somehow you visualize everything. And I wasn't really a big Star Wars fan. Like, I was a big Star Wars, but I mean, I wasn't such a fanatic about it, but I can understand why he was so epic in what he did. Was his writing was so visually stimulating.
Yeah. I think what you're saying in a nutshell is, and I take this for myself, it's important to become very good at one thing. And if your one thing's going to be writing or a screenwriter, then that's what you focus on. You become very good at that. And then if you want to move off of that, burnout factor or whatever, you move into something else. But the intense focus, almost like an Olympic training, the Olympians aren't competing in every event out there. They're doing their one event and they go in for the kill on that one event. So
and eventually when they kill it, then they get offered a job to direct. Then they want to produce their own work. So, but they become, it takes 1,000 hours to become an expert at something, and it takes 10,000 hours to be unbeatable. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but 1,000 hours is 6 months worth of work.
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
If you really give it 6 months straight, I'm talking 8 hours a day.
Right.
You'll become an expert writer. You don't have the time because some guys don't have that kind of privilege unless they come out of school and they figure in life they're going to be a writer and they spend the next 6 months writing.
Well, that's why writers write in the middle of the night. Most of us do. Yeah, that's good.
And guys get up early in the morning, so it goes both ways. Late at night, some people just kick in with creativity, and they're up till all hours in the morning. Well, guys get up at 3:30 in the morning, they write for the first few hours. But it works both ways because at night you've got so much story in your head from the whole day's worth of activities.
Right.
You put that on paper, and then in the morning some guys wake up fresh. It's kind of a clean slate. It all depends.
Do you carry around like a notebook to keep track of ideas? And
I do, and I also record stuff on my phone. So and also my dreams. I have a notebook next to my bed, and if I have kind of these weird dreams, I write them down. If I wake up, I write them down.
Movie. Yeah, there you go. So with this kind of passion and this kind of experience and focus, obviously you've been successful doing exactly what you've talked about, because you've also directed and produced award-winning movies. So you've been on all ends of it. Talk to us a little bit about your recent adventure in front of the camera. Kevin
just frightening experience, life-changing.
He stepped in front of the camera just recently and was a part of Discovery Channel's new reality series called Tethered. So I'm going to let him just talk a little bit about that. I know nothing about it. We're still waiting for his episode to air.
Yeah, 2 weeks time.
Yeah.
And last night was the premiere in Panama with, was it Keith and Willow?
Keith and Willow. We're actually pre-recording this just so we can get information in time for Tethered. So those of you who are hearing this, actually, Kevin's episode will have aired the night before.
The producer of Tethered, Peter, when I meet him one day, when I want to ask him who came up with this bloody idea, because it's brutal. It's harsh, it's horrible, it's ugly, it's just, it's a mind bender. It really, it changes everything. I was stranded with a guy, Rob, with a 4-foot cable, and we had to survive for 10 days. And it literally, I've been married for 16 years. I believe it was 16 years. Is it 17 years?
You better find out before you go 16, home, or you're going to have another experience.
Absolutely. I'll be tethered to her for the rest of my life.
You are. You're lucky.
I'm not even tethered to my own wife. I mean, so to be tethered to someone with a 4-foot cable, there's no personal space. There's no personal, you can't do things by yourself. It really messes up with their head, and you're trying to. Yeah, and he was a complete opposite of me. So I was this highly ambitious, very motivated person. I do multi-million-dollar real estate deals, and here is this guy who just lives by the free will of whatever happens there happens, and doesn't earn any money, but he lives with the land and just kind of is a really free willed adventurous, which I thought was quite fascinating because I thought it was very interesting that here I need structure and certainty, where he has none and he's completely content.
That's why they paired you.
Yeah.
Plus, you go 100 miles an hour. I've watched you. He goes as fast as he talks all the time, from one thing to the other. Ideas pop out that way. His real estate deals are flying into his office. Same thing. He is such a busy man, and he goes 1,000,000 miles an hour. So to pair you with somebody that is complete antithesis of that has to make for some great drama.
Yeah, I was very dramatic because here I am, a city slicker, and I'm put out in this environment that tortured me with snakes and alligators and leeches and worms and slugs and oh man, it was unbearable.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah, mosquitoes everywhere. So you get eaten alive. You're eating other creatures alive. Alligators are charging at you. The heat is unbearable. The humidity is even double than the heat. So,
can you tell them where you were?
I wonder if I can. I'm not too sure, Molly. I think they might have to watch in 2 weeks' time on the 22nd.
Well, this thing will be airing. Okay. This podcast will air the day after.
Yeah,
so they have seen it.
It's in the Louisiana bayous.
There you go.
So what I did enjoy about it was a challenge. I thought I could really make it happen, but it really broke me.
Yeah.
It broke me mentally and physically. When I got back home, I was a wreck.
Yeah, we didn't write for a month because Kevin was going back kind of to center to I guess recreate himself. He was struggling a little bit with recuperating.
It was hard. And you even said because of your history and understanding medicine and and the whole background, you said to Heather he's having post-traumatic stress, and I didn't believe it. I
still think you did, post-traumatic stress disorder.
And I didn't believe it at the time, but now that I think about it, absolutely.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For a week, I didn't leave the home. I just sat in there, and I didn't want to go anywhere, do anything, and.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, it's enjoyable for us to watch on the outside, but we're not out there in 100-degree heat with caging alligators. So anyway, I'm glad you made it back safely. I'm excited to see Tethered. Tell us real quickly before we end, any last words about, gosh, Kevin, you're a self-made man. I mean, you've come from Africa to the United States with nothing in your pocket. You've been completely successful with Hollywood. You've made films that the rest of us can only go and be amazed at. You're still writing. You're still involved with Hollywood. Now you're in the front of the camera. And on top of all of that, you have a multi-million-dollar real estate business. So anything you can throw out to the rest of us about, how do we do what you've done?
I think we all have our destiny has already been charted. I think our destiny has already been charted. I think what it is in life is that you're the one who botches it up. So I think really if you keep still and you listen and you meditate and you pray and you just listen and you be patient and you focus on what you really love. I loved Hollywood. I ran away from Hollywood. Now I'm drawn back to Hollywood. So even though you're trying to run away from it, you'll always ultimately get drawn back because there's this kind of synergy. There's a silver line that's going to draw you back. And even though you aren't in Hollywood, it's a whole part of your life because the movies and the TV shows and the writing and the books and the
it's getting even more busy even for me, and I'm not even close to
radio
where you
shows
are.
and producing stuff now and ideas and concepts and reality. So if you just focus on what you're passionate about, it also you start attracting it. Right. And you can't help it, and eventually it gets bigger attraction until you become like the bomb. The it factor in writing and filmmaking and so forth. Then eventually you start making your own movies because you can, because you've got the money or the contacts and you got the connections. Well,
it was fun to have that phone call come. It actually happened right here in my office. I can't say where, but it was a major studio in Hollywood that wanted to look at our screenplay. So that was really fun. Yeah, and then we got another one that called after that. So there's a little bit of a bidding war going on right now, and that's kind of fun. I'm high-fiving him right now.
And everything's a trend. Everything's a trend. So, and real estate's a trend. The stock market's a trend. Weather's a trend. The earth is a trend. Everything has cycles. So
we have to just ride through the cycles and have faith.
And then soon your cycle will come by and boom. Then your cycle slows down. Right. The season slows down. Then it picks up again. Right. Because you find a different cycle. This time you're going from writing powers to writing sci-fi. I mean, it all just depends. You just go through cycles as trends. And good filmmakers follow the trends. So right now, sci-fi's in, or right now, comics are in. Exactly. Yeah. They follow the trends, and they're out there pitching exactly because it's like a stockbroker. If insurance isn't selling right now, but real estate is, a good stockbroker will focus on real estate, but he loves insurance. It all depends. So
well, you've got the clientele flocking to you, and I can tell you what, this man knows what he's doing. Real estate, he knows how to sell it. He knows how to help you get what you need out of your house if you're looking to sell or buy. Where, Kevin, can people find you if they want to have you represent them as a real estate agent? Where do they get a hold of you?
Thank you, Marty. It's so easy. Just look up my name online, Kevin du Toit, or go to my website, kevindutoit.com, which is KEVIN, D for David, UTOIT.com, and hit me an email, call me. My cell phone's on there, everything's there, and you can contact me, and I'll be more than willing to help you out in any way I can.
He's also on Facebook. I know there's a Facebook page, Kevin du Toit, on there. And of course, if anybody is not successful doing that, you can reach me through this podcast, and I'll be happy to pass the information on to any of you. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your insight, your wisdom, and all of the things that you've been able to contribute. The encouragement, especially, that you give to those of us that are trying to make it in the difficult industry in Hollywood. Thank you also to you for joining us today on Musings of a Writer with Marty Melville. We'd love to hear you weigh in on the show. You can contact any of us here at Midnight Omen Productions through our email, which is midnightomenproductions@gmail.com. Please remember to follow on Twitter and Google Marty Melville. There's also a Facebook page, which I'd love to have you join me on there, and we'll have more information about Kevin there. And again, that's Marty Melville. And I wish you all a lovely week. Until next time, bye.
It's been fun. Thank you, Marty.